Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest in our series of podcasts brought to you from the Export to Japan team. And on this particular episode, we have a wonderful guest, and we're going to be diving into the world of the space sector in Japan and learning all about the current trends and topics in the space sector and what the opportunities may be for UK companies entering that exciting market. And I'll be introducing our guest in a moment. But before I do that, I'd just like to take a moment to say, please, 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 if you could hit that subscribe button, we would be absolutely delighted. We have a whole series and a whole season of new podcasts coming up with some amazing guests. So by subscribing, you will get notifications of our new podcasts when we launch them. And also, if you appreciate the content on this particular podcast, if you could hit that like button as well, that would be really helpful for us, and we would appreciate that too. So without further ado, I'd like to dive in, and I would like to introduce this week's guest, and it is Mr. Ishida-san, who is the co-founder, president, and CEO of SPACETIDE Foundation. Ishida-san, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, hi, Steve. Very nice to meet you. So thank you for having me. So I'm honored to be here today.
Well, thank you. And we know you're a busy man, so thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us and talk with us.
Yeah, so I wear several hats in the space industry.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And I can hear you obviously speaking great English, which is very helpful and very useful. So what's your experience? Have you worked internationally at all, or have you spent your career working in Japan? Or tell us a little bit more about your background, please.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, as I said, I wear several hats in the space industry. So as co-founder and the CEO of SPACETIDE Foundation, so I host one of the largest space business conference in the APAC region. So in addition, I also work for Kearney, a global management consulting firm. So I'm leading Kearney's global space group and providing a variety of consulting service to a wide range of clients in the global space industry. So on top of that, as my individual activities, I have been contributing to the policy making in the Japanese government through various governmental committees. So I wear several hats in the space industry, but I've dedicated my life to expanding and developing the space industry over the past 10 years.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. And we're very privileged to have you on this podcast and look forward to learning some more snippets about this valuable knowledge that you've clearly gained over many years.
Yeah.
So on that topic, SPACETIDE Foundation. So could you tell us a little bit more about the foundation, what you do and what your objectives are and what your activities are, please?
Yeah, thanks for the great question. We incorporate the SPACETIDE Foundation and hosted the first space business conference in Japan in 2015 with the aim of creating new waves in the space industry. So in 2015, the space industry has already been a big trend in the US. However, looking back at Japan, there were few space startups and their social awareness was very limited. So we came up with an idea of hosting Japan's first space business conference to gather all stakeholders around the space industry and raise social awareness of the space industry here in Japan. So we proposed our idea to the cabinet office in Japan. So we decided to host our event together with them. So our vision is driving the future of human society through the space industry. So, you know, space is built as an iconic display of frontier space, right? That our space industry is still considered to be a very niche market when compared with other terrestrial industries. I mean, for example, ICT industry is about 10 times larger. Automobile industry is about 15 times larger, and healthcare industry is more than 20 times larger. And you know, these industries support our social life with the latest service and the technologies under the soil in which the private company thrive, creating more jobs and spawning a variety of technological innovation. So we believe our space industry can and should contribute more to the future of human society. So we are pursuing a sustainable industry ecosystem through connecting the industry, the community, and the individuals, and materializing the potential of the space industry. That's our vision and mission.
That sounds amazing. And yeah, it makes sense exactly what you're saying. And when you position it like that, it does in fact sound very exciting and very compelling, where the opportunities will be for the future. I just want to take one step back there, because you mentioned the conference was the sort of kickoff point. So let's just understand a little bit more about the conference. So is that a sort of an annual conference? You know, I know we've had a tough couple of years with COVID and things, but that aside, is the plan that this will be an annual conference? And also, is that conference focused mainly on the domestic market in Japan, or is it more of an international global conference? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's our international conference. So we are performing various cross-industry activity to progress the industry as a whole. So as you said, one of our main activities is organizing one of the largest space business conference in the APAC region, Asia Pacific region. So it has been held since 2015. So this year's conference, or SPACETIDE 2022, was held in July, and was attended by 80 speakers around from more than 20 countries, and attended by over 700 participants, and also sponsored by more than 20 private companies. Here are these pictures for this year's conference, SPACETIDE 2022. You can see many international speakers.
So the conference that you did in July, this is what we're looking at right now. These are some examples from the July conference. So was it fully an in-person conference, or was some of this held online? How did that work?
Hybrid
Conference, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Hybrid format.
Got it. Okay.
And
I can see the map of the UK up there on the top right. That's nice to see.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to see.
Yeah, so SPACETIDE is playing a key role by being a venue for cooperation or collaboration and harmonization among international community to achieve the progress for the industry as a whole. And also, please look at this chart. Here's a list of our sponsors for fiscal year 2022. In addition to traditional aerospace companies, you can see a variety of terrestrial industry players. You can see Amazon Web Service. You can see Honda, Sony, and SoftBank, or KDDI. So a variety of industry players have shown great interest in space.
That is impressive to see. Yeah, that's really fascinating, actually, to see those companies. And I think for a lot of the viewers and tuning into this podcast, it will be interesting for them to start to understand a bit of the landscape of the extent of Japanese companies that are interested in the space sector and working in the space sector. It's very interesting. There are a lot of very well-known names that we would recognize there, and probably a number of names that many internationals may not know or recognize. So So that's really interesting.
So traditionally, all space activities has been led by the government agency historically, but interest in commercial space is increasing in both public and the private sector. So a variety of startups and large corporations are stepping into the various space business segment.
Wow, that's great to hear.
Yeah. So in addition to a traditional aerospace company, but also large corporations from various industries such as automobile industry, telecommunication industries, electronics industries, aero industries, the trading industries have begun to invest in the space industry.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. That's we call new space movement.
Oh, okay, got it. Yes, I've heard that terminology. I've got it. Yeah, and on that particular point you raise, in very general terms in Japan, where does the funding come from for companies? Is the government heavily investing in funding, or is these startup companies that you mentioned, are they seeking funding elsewhere? What's your general feeling on the funding?
Yeah. So in the global sectors, so main investors are investment professionals. So I mean the angel investor or venture capitals. But our investment, in case of Japan, investor profile a bit unique compared with global space industries. Main investors are governmental fund and large corporation from various industry, as I said. Yeah, large corporation from terrestrial industries has begun to invest in the space industries. So I think that I can, regarding the motive to invest in the space industry, we can divide it into 3 categories. So first is, how do I say, frontier spirits. Yeah, the space is built as an iconic display of frontier spirits. It raised engineers' motivations, right? And the second reason is advanced investment in emerging business. Yeah, not only space, but also the AI, digital, or something like that, metaverse, or something like that, right? And the third reason, I think that this is the most major reason, is to enhance their current business by utilizing the space technology. So a variety of corporations see space technology, especially satellite technology as an enabler to create many kinds of value in the digital age, such as automation, smartification, ubiquitous connectivity, and so on. And industry trends such as Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, and digital transformation accelerating the utilization of satellite. So, so for example, so satellite communication is expected to transform the internet access around the globe. Or it's also expected to bridge the digital divide globally. And the satellite imagery has been utilized in various sectors, and the geospatial analysis can help and visualize many socioeconomic challenges facing humanity. So satellite technology can help solve socioeconomic challenges we face. So the variety of industry are trying to utilize the satellite technology to develop many kinds of values. The space industry is creating a new value for the world and society.
Yes, understood. Now, when you were talking about how some of the bigger traditional Japanese companies may make investments in smaller startup companies, do you ever see any evidence of those kind of investments going into overseas companies, or is it mainly in the domestic market that they're investing?
Yeah, that's also a great question. Okay, so Japanese space startups have raised in total $1 billion over the past 5 years. Yeah, almost all investment come from the domestic market. Yeah. But I think but I'd say Japanese market is open to international players. Especially Japan's private sector is open to international players. So many international players or international space players are active in the Japanese market.
Okay.
Yeah, because traditionally space, how do I say? So traditionally, government-led space development has been carried out on country and region basis. So that's the space industry has been developed on country and region basis. However, commercial space is becoming more diverse and international. So I mean, there are partnership across the country and the region is extremely important.
Yes. Okay.
So in this context, a variety of international companies are stepping into the Japanese market. So for example, the satellite startups such as Planet, Orbital Insight, ISI have already their local branch here in Japan and provide their geospatial imagery service to many Japanese companies. And also in the field of satellite communication, SpaceX, one of the most famous space company globally, and also UK-backed OneWeb will provide their satellite communication service through the partnership with Japan's mobile operators.
Okay. Oh, that's really good to hear.
And also in the field of launch service, rocket business. So SpaceX and Rocket Lab has already launched many Japan's commercial satellites. And also, in addition, Birds in Orbit is also partnering with ANA, All Nippon Airline, one of the major Japanese airline, to provide their launch service from a spaceport in the west part of Japan. So again, so many international players already build a partnership with Japanese players, very active in the here in Japan.
That's so good to hear and very, very exciting. Now, as you're setting the scene for us here and we're learning more about the market and the trends in the market,
sure.
It's making me realize more and more how important this conference is. So before we move on too far from that, I just want to come back and pick up a couple of points on behalf of our viewers and our listeners. So you mentioned that this year's conference was in July. So do you have a date or a period in mind for next year's conference? When is the next one?
Not exactly yet.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Not
all right,
that,
no problem.
But we plan to host. Okay, so we plan to host 2 more conferences this year. So we plan to host one conference. Okay, so we plan to host a space industry workshop, which will be held in Vietnam, Hanoi, in mid-November.
Okay.
Yeah, space industry workshop is official contents of Asia Pacific Regional Space Agency Forum. So organized by JAXA, National Space Agency in Japan. So together with JAXA, SPACETIDE co-hosts the space industry workshop since 2019. So with the aim of accelerating public-private partnership in the APAC region.
Wow. Okay.
So if you are interested in connecting with the APAC space sectors, so it can be a great opportunity. So please join us.
Yes. Okay. Where would any of our listeners that are sort of interested in knowing more about these conferences that are coming up, where should they go to get more information? Is it your website or the JAXA website, or what's the best route you recommend for people to get more information on what's coming up?
We will release the details of the space industry workshop in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Please access to our website or Asia Pacific Regional Space Agency homepage website.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And what we'll do for everybody listening in, we'll put the links to those websites on the Export to Japan platform. We'll put the links there next to this video so that everybody can click through and find that. But that sounds really exciting. And it sounds to me like, any of our companies listening in that are interested into getting more knowledge and expertise, not only on the Japanese market, but on the regional market out there. These sort of conferences sound like the ideal format for them.
That's the point. So we started our activity from Japan. However, we are expanding our activity to the APAC region, APAC region, because the space industry encompasses more than just the traditional space nations like the US, Europe, and Japan. So government around the world fostering and joining the new space movement, influenced by different factors with entirely different goals from country to country. So the number of national space agency in APAC region has been increasing. And we estimate 300 space startups in operation in the APAC region.
Wow.
So we believe as a Pacific region, we'll reach the next growth phase of the space industry. So in this context, we would like to expand our activities to the APAC region with the aim of building a larger ecosystem in this region.
Yes.
To progress space industry as a whole.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, that sounds really exciting. And, you know, on that point, would you be able to expand a little bit on, you know, we're talking generally about all the opportunities in the market, but what is your general feeling on the trends in the Japanese market and the regional market? You know, where are the areas where you see growth and where you see opportunity in the domestic and the regional market?
Current space business can be categorized into 6 segments. Okay, so satellite application, I mean the utilization of satellite. Second is satellite operation and satellite development and operation. Third one is the launch service. Fourth one is in-orbit servicing. Fifth is space tourism. And final one is space exploration and space mining.
Mm-hmm.
And the first 3 and the first 4 segments are undergoing a major transformation due to a progress of a large-scale satellite constellation. So a variety of startups are working on. So on the other hand, so here in Japan, yeah, of course, the satellite-related business is becoming larger over the past 10 years. And in the all APAC region, satellite business is also one of the most major space business segment. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, space exploration and space tourism are totally new market, so it takes time to make money, but is expected to grow in the future. So here in Japan, some space startups are working on these evolving market.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Very interesting. Now, you mentioned an expression a little bit earlier. You referred to new space, and I'm aware of these expressions, old space and new space. But just for the benefit of our listeners, could you just expand a little bit on what we mean when we refer to the Japan space industry from old space to new space?
Yeah. Okay. So let me share a brief history of Japan's space industry. So Japan has seen 50 years of space development led by National Space Agency, JAXA. So through the government contractor relationship with the industry. So it has been driven mainly by science and technology perspective. And it has covered a comprehensive set of space activities such as large rocket, satellite, international space station, human space flight, and also space exploration. So even in the last decade, we can see a successful achievement like a sample return by Hayabusa from deep space asteroid. However, basic space law in 2008 and the following basic space plan in 2009 changed Japan's national space policy from technology-driven to utilization-driven. So today, Japan space is positioned as an area of future growth and is expected to contribute to our national security, disaster prevention, economic growth, and also our achievement of SDGs. So today, 3 main goals of Japan's national space policy are ensuring space security, accelerating utilization of satellite, and strengthening industrial and economical bases. So in this context, interest in commercial space is increasing in both the public and private sectors. So in addition to government organizations, a variety of startups and large corporations, we often call the new space players, are stepping into the space industry at an active pace recently. As a result, a number of stakeholders is increasing rapidly as well. So we can see a rise of new industrial ecosystem. So, traditional ecosystem for government-led space development, how do I say, looks like pyramid structures with a space agency at the top, right? On the other hand, industrial ecosystem for commercial space, new space, is becoming more diversified with the number of stakeholders increasingly as well. So the variety of stakeholders should have to act harmoniously each other to achieve the progress for the industry. Yeah, of course, government-led space development remain important in the future. So the traditional space and the new space are both important.
Yes, okay. Very interesting. Now, as we're getting this kind of overview of the market and the trends, and we're talking about the Japanese domestic market, but also the regional market.
Yeah.
You also, there were some very encouraging points you made there about how some international players have come into the market and had success in Japan.
Yeah.
What would be your sort of general advice? And I realize this is a very challenging question I'm about to ask you, because it's one of those how long is a piece of string kind of questions. But what would be your very general advice for UK-based companies that are working in this sector, that have some kind of innovation or some know-how or some particular technology, and the Japanese market is completely new to them? And listening into this podcast and this discussion today might be their first step. But what would be your sort of general advice with your expertise of the Japanese market and collaborations and building partnerships and doing business in Japan? What tips and ideas would you give those companies that are looking from an international perspective on the Japanese market, and how they should go about building relationships and eventually doing business and getting partnerships in Japan? What would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, okay. So in areas not related to national security, or there doesn't seem to be any clear restrictions or barrier to enter into the Japanese market. So for the private companies, as I said, the partnership with overseas companies, including the UK companies, is a result of management decision making based on business strategies. One of the biggest challenge for overseas companies to collaborate with the Japanese company is localization of the space business. So I mean, our overseas company should hire a local talent in Japan, set up a local branch, and improve their business model to fit with Japan's domestic market. So some overseas companies have been implementing this approach over the past years and succeeded in collaborating with our Japanese company, as I shared earlier. And regarding the area of future collaboration between the UK and Japan, we can see various opportunities of future collaboration. So, for example, satellite related business can be an area of future collaboration between the UK and Japan, because in the satellite business, the trend is shifting from geo-based large satellite to LEO-based small satellite. A variety of companies are stepping into the LEO small satellite constellation field. And over the past decade, the number of launches has doubled, resulting in 5 times as many satellites in orbit. And as I said, satellite technology can help solve barriers or academic, social, and economic challenges facing humanity. And satellite communication is expected to transform the internet access around the globe, and the special image area can help and visualize many socioeconomic challenges. Here in Japan, there are players working on development of real satellite constellations. On the other hand, there are many competitive satellite component providers in the UK. And in addition, UK has historically had a wide network with various countries and regions where satellite can help barriers, can help solve barriers for economic challenges. So I think the UK and Japan can complement each other's function and capabilities to build a strong satellite business value chain from upstream, I mean the development and manufacturing to downstream application around the globe.
Very good. Yeah, so that's great advice and some great examples of where those opportunities should be. And you clearly know the UK space market almost as well as you know the Japanese market. So your global knowledge is very apparent from this conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to one more ideas. Yeah, not only to step into the Japanese market, UK and Japan can cooperate to develop the international market, I believe. So yeah, for example, the in-orbit servicing industry can be an area of future collaboration between the UK and Japan. So as the number of spacecraft has continued to grow, the expectation for the in-orbit servicing, such as space debris removal, life extension service, or refueling and in-space manufacturing are also increasing. However, rules for orbital use are still not unclear.
Right.
Yeah, it has been very difficult to create international hard law since 1969 Outer Space Treaty. On the other hand, soft law are not effective because they are not legally binding. So in this under such a circumstance, mainstream approach in the future will be that countries with well-developed technology and domestic regulation should cooperate multilaterally and raise the international community by providing a standard and principles.
Yes.
And some of the Japanese companies have a variety of technologies that can be adapted to the future in-orbit servicing industry. On the other hand, UK is good at reading rule making and also creating a financial mechanism in the market. So therefore, I believe UK and Japan can complement each other's function to create a new market of the in-orbit servicing for the sustainable use of outer space in the future.
Wow. Yeah, that's very powerful. And thank you for sharing that really good example with us of where there's a huge opportunity. And I could imagine a number of the companies listening into this podcast today will suddenly be thinking, okay, we could be part of that. We have some value that we can add to that. So yeah, that's a really good example to share. Thank you. And what I would say, I think at this point in the podcast, I would just like to take a moment to say, for those of you listening in and getting this overview of the market, and hopefully we're whetting your appetite and really starting to help you understand a little bit more about the trends and the opportunities. And in terms of where you go from here, obviously we've spoken about some of the conferences that are coming up, and I would encourage anyone to engage with those conferences, and we'll share the information on how to find more detail on those conferences. Of course, you can see the great work that SPACETIDE Foundation are doing, and by getting involved with SPACETIDE and learning more from them is another great route. And I would also just take this moment to recommend as well, reach out to the British Embassy in Tokyo. And if you send an inquiry or any questions into the Export to Japan platform, we will gladly field those onto the relevant people at the embassy. But I know that they are also very keen to support and help UK companies in this sector to collaborate in Japan. So use that as another channel as well. And the embassy, in fact, have been very good in helping facilitate and connect us up for today's podcast. So there's various routes for help there. And we will be happy at Export to Japan to point you in the right direction and connect you up. So now, I just wanted to come back on the topic again, Ishida-san. It's always important for us to give a balanced view to the overseas companies that are looking at the market. And we're giving a very encouraging view on where the opportunities are and lots of information about the sector. But what would you also say from your experience, what are some of the challenges we should make overseas companies aware of about the dynamics of doing business in Japan? Maybe some of the cultural differences about doing business, etc. What are some of the things they should just be aware of where it can be a little more challenging compared to perhaps some of the easier international markets that they might be looking at? What's some of that uniqueness about doing business in Japan and making those partnerships?
I think there doesn't seem to be any clear barriers or restrictions. So one of the biggest challenges for overseas companies is to localize their business to fit with the Japanese domestic market. For example, the language barriers, something like that. So I think the UK company should hire the local talent and launch the local branch here in Japan. Yeah, and improve their business model to fit with Japanese customers here in Japan. Yeah.
That makes great sense. And again, through the Export to Japan platform, that level of detail, we have lots of advice and help for UK companies. You know, if you want to recruit local talent, if you're interested in learning how to set up and incorporate an office in Japan, we have experts on the Export to Japan platform that can help you with all those specialist services. So I agree with you. It's at this level in this sector and the sort of business opportunities we're talking about, having that local support is obviously an essential way of doing it.
And also the SPACETIDE can be a main channel for overseas company or to meet their potential Japanese partner and customers. Because as I said, our main conference gathers all stakeholders around the space industry. They are government officials, established companies, startups, investors, marketers, researchers. All stakeholders come together.
Yes.
So in addition, most sessions are conducted in English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, of course. So no language barriers, right? So our conference can provide overseas companies with a good opportunity to connect with Japan's local players. So for example, Amazon Web Service has been sponsoring our activities, our event since 2021. And AWS has been expanding their business and partnership in Japan. So if the UK companies are interested in Japan market, please join us and please sponsor our event.
Yes, there's no doubt that your foundation and
that can be an entry ticket, right?
Yes, it really is.
There's entry ticket.
there's no question whatsoever that any company in this sector that want to do business in Japan, you are the person, and your organization is exactly who they need to be talking to. I think that message is coming across very strongly. So that's why we're so lucky to have you as our guest. I mean, just a point of detail on that. The conferences are obviously one of the main themes of what you do, and we've covered that extensively so that people can understand the conferences. But is that really the main way for overseas companies to engage with SPACETIDE, or are there any other ways? You know, can they contact you directly with any questions, or do you have any membership or anything like that, or is it all just purely through the conferences that you engage?
We do not have any membership. We have only the sponsorship program. But please email us. Please directly contact the SPACETIDE Foundation.
No problem. Okay, great. And again, we'll share those contact details on
just email. Very simple.
No problem. No problem. Okay. And as you say, you know, the sponsorship, you know, joking apart, the sponsorship is a great opportunity, particularly for overseas companies that want to establish their brand and their awareness in Japan with the key Japanese players in the ecosystem. Then what better way than to get involved in sponsoring some form of event at some level? And then that's a very serious message about how you're entering the market and you're looking to connect and do business and build relationships out there. So.
So in addition to a sponsorship program, we are also looking for international speakers for our conference. As I said, this year's conference had 80 speakers from 20 countries. So half of speakers come from domestic, come from Japan, but half come from international. So our conference is an international conference. It's not a Japan's domestic conference.
Understand.
So, we have so many international speakers. All sessions are conducted in English.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
if the UK companies want to take stage at a conference, please let us know.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good final tip to leave it on. Hopefully we've built up the interest and the knowledge in the market, and we're now giving some great advice on what those next steps should be for the overseas companies.
Yeah.
So now I'm a little aware of the time, Ishida-san, and we do need to wrap up now. But before I show my thanks and appreciation, I just want to go back to the audience for a second, just to say, I hope everybody has found this discussion really informative. I think we've learned an incredible amount about not just the domestic market and the trends and the topics in the domestic market, but also a little more about the regional market and really the global market and what the opportunities are there. And it's clear that this sector in Japan is a very significant one. And there's no doubt that organizations like SPACETIDE Foundation are the absolute critical key to helping overseas companies get into the market. So I hope you found it enjoyable, everybody listening in. As I mentioned at the start, please subscribe. If you've enjoyed the content of this discussion, please hit that like button, because that helps us enormously with all our Google rankings and all that sort of stuff. So we appreciate your support in return for listening to this podcast. And I would just like finally to wrap up by thanking Ishida-san for taking time out to join us today. It's been a fascinating discussion, and it's very clear how passionate you are about the space sector and how much of your life and your career you've given to this sector. And I'm sure you will continue to help many companies and partnerships thrive. And it's been a real pleasure talking to you today. So thank you so much for your time, Ishida-san.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you, everybody, for listening in today. Thank you.